Hi and welcome to my EcoBuzz. I'm Jessica Gregory. We've just begun a new series entitled Know Your Water, in which we're exploring different aspects of our water resources because, of course, none of us can survive without water. Last time we looked at where our water comes from. In case you missed it, check it out using the link in the video description. In this episode, we're starting a 3-part journey to learn where our water goes after we use it in our homes and businesses. Are you ready? Let's go! In order to understand what happens to our water, we have to know about watersheds, which is the focus of this episode. A watershed is not a shed to contain water, but rather describes an area of land in which all the water drains into the same place. In other words, all of the streams, rivers, and groundwater within a watershed share the same common outlet. Now, within a watershed, rainwater will flow across surfaces like rooftops, parking lots, and roadways. This drains into storm drains, which then flows into the nearest water source. In the Grand Rapids area, this of course is the Grand River. You'll also get water that falls on natural surfaces like soil, grass, or other vegetation, and this water gradually soaks into the ground and makes its way into the groundwater, then eventually into rivers and streams. Each stream or river has its own watershed, and since smaller streams eventually flow into larger ones, any given watershed may contain several smaller watersheds as well. An example of this is the Grand River Watershed in West Michigan. This is the largest watershed in the state of Michigan, covering over 5,500 square miles, and there's a lot of water that passes through that amount of land. But the Grand River also has many smaller tributaries such as the Rogue River, the Pigeon River, and Crockery Creek, among others. Each of these smaller watersheds is contained within the larger Grand River watershed. Because the Grand River flows into Lake Michigan, the Big Lake is the common outlet for all of these smaller watersheds too. As you might imagine, Lake Michigan has its own watershed, and it covers an area of 45,600 square miles. 13% of this entire drainage basin, that's another name for watershed, comes directly from the Grand River. Since all of the water in a watershed eventually ends up in the same place, particles, sediments, or pollutants like trash or chemicals can also be carried across great distances within a watershed. This means that a piece of litter left in a parking lot in Jackson, Michigan, which is near the birthplace of the Grand River, could eventually make its way out to Lake Michigan, traveling a distance of over 240 miles. Let's go even larger scale for a minute and take a look at the largest river system in the United States, the Mississippi. This watershed is huge, covering over 1.2 million square miles, almost half of the land area in the entire continental U.S. It discharges nearly 4.5 million gallons of water into the Gulf of Mexico every second. This water travels into the Gulf from all across the eastern and central United States, from both urban centers and rural land, carrying all sorts of particles with it. Hopefully it's becoming apparent that the land use within a watershed has an impact on the health and quality of our water resources. The same idea applies when water goes down your drain at home, aka wastewater, or into the storm sewer down the road, aka stormwater. We'll talk in the next couple of episodes about the differences between these types of water and how they impact a watershed. Thanks for joining me on this journey to know your water. Until next time, happy naturing. Don't forget to subscribe to my EcoBuzz for access to more great content.